The new Star Wars trilogy will soon come to an end, and with it will bring the conclusion to the Skywalker Saga that spanned 9 movies over 4 decades. Even with all that backstory, we still have a ton of questions about the upcoming film, so here's everything we know so far. Before we dive in though, be sure to like and subscribe to CinemaBlend for more awesome videos like this that break down the biggest releases headed to theaters. First, let's dig into the title. We've known for some time now that Star Wars Episode 9 will in fact be called Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. But what exactly does that tell us about the movie? With Luke's death in the previous film, it's difficult to assume it refers to his character, and with the passing of Carrie Fisher before production started, we're not sure they have enough to center the title's meaning around Leia either. There are, of course, a lot of theories floating around. One that I especially like is that Skywalker is a new ideology of sorts and will signify a change or new balance to the Force aside from the usual Sith Jedi way of doing things. But this is something we just won't know until we sit down on opening weekend.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
The creative direction of The Rise of Skywalker underwent some changes early on in development, as Jurassic World director Colin Trevorrow was originally tapped to write and direct. Eventually he was replaced, and Oscar-winning writer Chris Terrio came on with the help of J.J. Abrams to pen the script, and J.J. is now back in the driver's seat of the trilogy he started as the co-writer, producer, and director of Episode 9. We don't yet have an official rating from the MPAA, but given that this is Disney and that every Disney Star Wars film has been PG-13, we are pretty confident that this will end up the same. As for the release date, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is hitting theaters on December 20th. The core cast of characters are of course all returning, and we'll even be getting a selection of scenes featuring Carrie Fisher as Leia thanks to some clever rewrites. No, she hasn't been recast, and no, she will not be a CG character. Using footage of scenes from the first 2 films that never made the cut, JJ and the lovely folks at Lucasfilm were apparently able to write entirely new scenes around her takes in order to put her in the film. As far as some new cast members, well, we just have to dive right into the return of Palpatine. While Ian McDiarmid is by no means a new addition to the Star Wars franchise, his appearance as Palpatine is something I think none of us could have seen coming. We thankfully don't know a ton about what he'll be up to, but Daisy Ridley did have this to say about his return. He's the biggest baddie in Star Wars history. Now that we've done the story, I'm like, it couldn't have happened any other way. It had to be that. But he's very instrumental to the plot of the film. It's not just like he appears again, it's all explained. Aside from Palpatine's shocking return, we also know the long-rumored Knights of Ren will also make an appearance in the film, but we don't yet know if anyone of note will be playing them. We have, however, seen images of Kerry Russell's Zori Bliss, who's been described as a rogue and is giving off some serious Boba Fett vibes. We've also seen images of Richard E. Grant's Allegiant General Pride. Now, I don't know what an Allegiant General is, but he appears to be running things over at the First Order with our boy Hux. So with all that said, you'd think we have a pretty clear idea of the story, but in typical JJ fashion, we really don't. Trailers have suggested a huge battle between the Resistance and First Order with shots of an entire armada of Star Destroyers. We think we're heading back to the old dead Death Star, which makes sense with the return of the old, presumably dead Emperor, and we've seen glimpses of Sith Rey, but we'd be silly to assume it's as simple as her just going to the dark side. There are tons of questions that Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker needs to answer for fans, and one thing that they've made clear is that this will be the end of the Skywalker Saga. If you don't believe me, just hear what Finn himself had to say.
No, it's the end.
Yeah?
It's the end. That this literally is the end. I keep on telling everyone this. Everyone asks me, is this the end? No. It really, really is. This is like the last fight, last stand. Skywalker Saga, finished.
And with that, you're now up to speed on everything we know so far about Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. We'll definitely be learning more as the release date approaches, so be sure to like and subscribe to CinemaBlend to keep yourself in the loop.